is about to rise. Welcome back. Welcome back to Hot Mic. Hot Mic is a podcast where divergent points of view debate and discuss hot topics. I'm Nathan the Barbarian, your humble host and moderator. Welcome back to the conversation and happy Friday to you as we are broadcast live from the beautiful city of Cincinnati, which uh, people nationally and perhaps internationally are talking about the city right now. And I want to welcome in the crew. We got Kevin Aldridge with us, the voice of reason. How you doing, sir?
Very good. Happy Friday to everybody.
Raven Mundy. How you doing, Raven? Good to see you.
I'm all right, considering the circumstances.
We got Mack Mariani. Mack is back. It's been a minute. How you doing, Mack?
Yeah, I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And Tarris Troy Horton.
What's up,
some
everybody?
people call him Terrence. So that's why you put the Troy in there. Good to see you, Tarris.
Good to see you guys.
Absolutely. Well, let's get straight into it. You know, the big topic has been the so-called brawl that happened in downtown Cincinnati, and so many things have happened within the last couple of days. So I want to just like an onion kind of peel back and ask you different questions. At the top of that list is I want to get your thoughts about the mayor of Cincinnati. So Mayor Avtab Purival, we now find out was out of town over the last few days. We found out that he was made aware of the fight before he left. He was vacationing in Vancouver with his family, and he is making a return a little bit earlier. Some people are criticizing him, saying he should have came home earlier than that. What do you think? What do you think about the mayor of Cincinnati? Should he have cut his vacation short and came home, or he's got a city manager? And how was he supposed to know that this was going to become a national thing? What do you think?
Well, Nathan, I think that, look, everybody deserves an opportunity to go on vacation and to be with their family. And certainly nobody can fault him for being out of town when it happened. You certainly don't know when and if these types of events are going to happen, or when an event that happens in your city is going to catch lightning and go viral and become subject of a national conversation. But I do think once things escalated to that point, like once it became a national topic, he should have come back. Now, I get, you hate to disappoint your kids. You hate to disappoint your wife. I think any of us who have been in jobs that demand for us to respond sometimes when we're enjoying our private time, I know very well as a journalist the rub that can create in a household. But when you are an elected official, particularly a mayor of a city who is the face of that city, who is elected to be the face of that city, I think in a time of crisis, you have an obligation to return back to your duty. I get people are like, well, you got a city manager and other folks who are there. That's true, but they're not the mayor. So I think at a certain point when it became evident how serious this was, he should have made arrangements to get back to Cincinnati quickly as possible.
Anybody else? What do you think? You agree with Kevin? Disagree with Kevin?
It's too close to an election for him to be taking any time off, in my opinion. Especially, he could have been in front of 500,000 people. It could have been. Like Kevin said, he's the face of Cincinnati. It would have been good to see him, like I said at the last podcast, with Earth, Wind, and Fire, Goody Mob, Scarface. He should have been out there promoting himself, if not anything else. He's treating Black people and the Black vote, which he is going to need to win this mayor race, and he probably will. He's treating Black people like I always say the Democratic Party treats them. He don't care. He's like, he knows Black people are going to vote for him. So why would he show up, and why would he put his best foot forward? Moving forward from this, I hope he sees the countdown is real and that the Republican Party is not playing with his butt. He needs to start hitting the ground running and seeing what he's going to do. Yeah, he'll still probably beat Corey Bowman, but come on, man. Beat him good. Don't give him. This opportunity, him not being there in this situation. We still haven't got a statement from him or anything. Like we got it from the police chief, who they are destroying her. Avtab has responsibility to this city, in my opinion, to step up and show why he wants to continue to be mayor.
I think it's kind of disingenuous to say that, like, he should just know or be able to just perceive that these kind of situations are going to happen. And so he needs to be, available at a moment's notice. Like, Kevin said, we all deserve to be able to take a vacation here if we can afford it. We all should be able to take a vacation when we need to. Now, I will say I do think it is kind of in Tarris's defense. I do kind of think it is a bad strategy in an election year or an upcoming election year or something like that for you to be the mayor of Cincinnati and not attend Jazz Fest. Like that, I mean, just strategically, that don't seem like the best, option to me. I personally probably would have postponed my vacation until after Jazz Fest so that I could make my appearances first. But I mean, he made the decision that he made, and like I said, I don't think that it's okay to place that onus on him or place that responsibility on him to be able to predict situations like this and make himself available at a moment's notice. I agree with Kevin. Once he was made aware of the situation, things should have been put in place for him to make his way back. But just to have to expect him to have some kind of psychic mind to know that these things are inevitable and they're going to happen, and I should be available to the general public at a moment's notice, I can't get with that.
Mac, what you think?
Well, I don't want to begrudge anybody a vacation. I'm on vacation myself here, visiting my mom out in Seattle. But I think the challenge is less about where he was than the sort of sense of that. I don't think that. I mean, obviously I'm able to participate here from the other side of the continent. And I think that I don't think we've heard enough from him, right? I think there's a sort of strategy that I think sometimes politicians employ, that they don't want to create drama by engaging. And so some of this is also brought about by the fact that we really haven't heard all that much. I know he showed up for the online and talked with the folks at the downtown meeting, downtown neighborhood meeting. But beyond that, there hasn't been a lot of communication, and I feel like in our modern world, you might have been able to have his cake and eat it too. But I think part of the strategy politically might have been, I don't want to fuel this, but and maybe there's just sort of a failure to recognize that there's a lot of tinder out there that's going up whether or not he enters the fray or not. So I think we probably could have heard more from the mayor than we did, but I also think that he didn't time it well, but that wasn't under his control.
Yeah, I think that.
Let me add.
Can I chime in real quick, Kevin? I'll let you get your flow in.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think that Democrats need to recognize what's going on, and things have changed, and the Republican Party is far more adversarial and opportunistic. We just saw what happened with California. So if I'm a Democrat mayor in a blue city, I'm paying attention to what happened in California, and it's just going to turn up my spider senses and my sensitivity. I don't think anybody would begrudge Mayor Avtab for taking a vacation. However, I think that once you get a sense that things might be kind of going out of control, I think it's in your best interest to get back to the city just because of how things look and how people are going to use that against you. And hopefully this will be a lesson for Avtab and any other Democrat mayor that might be in a red city or a red state, or even if you're a governor in a red state, that when disasters happen, when things happen like that your political opponents are going to try their best to use that against you. And that needs to be a part of your calculation in terms of when your vacations are happening and the moves that you're making. Like, you're under pressure and, you need to act like that. So I don't begrudge Mayor Avtab and just to clarify, Tarris, to my understanding, he was here and he opened up and he was at some kind of event. I don't remember the name of it. He was here for an event for the weekend, and then he left after that. But you're right, he wasn't on the stage and things like that. I'm not sure if I expect him to be. I mean, it would be cool, but when I go to the Jazz Fest, I don't really care if he's there or not. It's a nice touch if he is. But I think that hopefully this will be a lesson for Avtab and other, Democrat mayors and governors that you got to step your game up and stay on your toes.
Yeah. And let's be real here. Look, I know there's a tendency for some people, particularly those who like Avtab or who may be caught up in the politics of this, to want to try to defend him. And again, nobody is begrudging him time with his family on vacation. And I saw somebody in the comments that's like, well, what was he going to do if he was going to be here? Well, there's still a lot of things that the mayor can do. And like it or not, he's elected to be sort of like the cheerleader, the face of the city. Anybody who's in a prominent elected role, whether it's a president, whether it's a governor, whether it's a mayor, when stuff hits the fan in your city, there is an expectation for you to be there and to have your presence and have your face shown, to be there to answer questions for the residents and people who have questions. I'm not so mad at him at the fact that he's not out there running off at the mouth. In fact, I think we have too many politicians who are out there running their mouths too much and probably saying some things that they shouldn't be saying for all sorts of political reasons. And so I'm not going to beat the guy up for not being out there running his mouth ad nauseum. But at the same time, you do have to be present when you are the mayor of the city of Cincinnati. And that's what people nationally are going to be looking at. Like it or not, like AFTAB or not, at a certain point, he needed to make that decision to say, hey, it's time for me to get back to the city, be in the face. As you pointed out, Nathan, if this were a natural disaster, if it were flooding or a tornado or something like that, there would be no excuse for the mayor not to be present. And unfortunately, again, situation out of his control that it escalated to this level. But Cincinnati has an image that it's trying to protect and recover in the aftermath of this, and you need your mayor to be there front.
I want to add something too about AFTAB. AFTAB is closest thing to honorary black that Cincinnati's had. So it's been a mayor since I've seen, since having an actual black mayor, Mark Mallory. Cranley wasn't a black adjacent as AFTAB is. AFTAB will wear black owned stuff. You'll see him black adjacent. He goes to black events. He is black understanding. He's accepted in the cookout. The new term that's going around in the Republican Party is Jerome Crow. It's the new Jim Crow. It's like when they put things in blackface, like they put Barack Obama in blackface and Kamala Harris in blackface. AFTAB Parabol is accepted and loved by Black America. As the mayor of this city, Black Cincinnati, as the mayor of Black Cincinnati, he should have our back. Your back. I'm in Kentucky. I can't say that. If I had a mayor that I would identify and he was like, oh yeah, he comes to the party, he hangs out, he wears black owned stuff, he's really down with our culture. Should he speak up for us and say, hey, this narrative that the Republicans are putting out there that this is a black attack, these animals, mob attack this people, is a false narrative. Will he tell the truth when he has a spotlight on him and protect black people who exalt him as a Democratic leader? Or will he and give Corey Bowman 10 points? I don't think Corey Bowman's going to win, but will he give him that 10 points? And the reason why I say this, and I was land my plane, I've worked the past 5 years trying to get black people away from the Democratic Party. And when things like this happen, it negates all the work that I do, especially like whenever we got Barack Obama on the ropes and we got him. If the Republican Party would get off of the racism and start going for the black vote, who we lean it 2%, 3%, we get it to 5%, and then we have an event like this, and then J.D. Vance, instead of him coming out and saying these people are animals, these people are that, he could have said, I'm siding with the black people. And how do you think that would have changed the dynamic of the way things are going to go? But instead, he didn't. So that's where we're at right now.
Because he would never, and that's the entire point. Like you just made a statement that said that you just or I guess admitted that you for the last 5 years you've been trying to get black people away from the Democratic Party because supposedly for reasons like this. Okay, if we all decided today to jump ship, where do we go? Where do we find at least adequate representation? Because it's not present in the Republican Party. So where do we go?
You're right, Raven. You're absolutely right. That's what I'm saying. That's why it's so disappointing for me as someone who works who tries to create articulate points to get black people to understand, from my perspective, that we're better served away from we've been better served. We have not gotten anywhere in the past since civil rights.
But where are we better served is what I'm asking you. Because don't you typically or primarily vote Republican?
Yes, I do.
So I'm confused because if we jump ship from the Democratic Party, we can't go over there where you at because that don't serve our interests. So where are we going, Tarris? Where you keep saying, well, your interests are better served, but better served where?
You're right, Raven. You're right. I'm sitting here
I
saying
don't need you to
I'm
tell me
agreeing with
I'm
you.
right. I know I'm right. I'm trying to get you to explain where our interests are better served. If you have been working actively for the last 5 years to get us off of the Democratic plantation where we can be free, where's we gonna be free at?
I got no answer.
So you have an exit strategy with no location for us to find sanctuary.
Martin Luther King had an extra strategy, and he led us into a burning building. He said,
That's
"I'm
not
just
what I
doing
just
my part."
asked you, Tarris. I asked
And
you
I can't have your answer.
about what you're doing.
What I'm doing is I'm not actively. You know what I'm going to do? Because Nathan had me up against the wall the other day, and I didn't have an answer. He said, "Tarris, what are you going to do when these Republicans show you exactly who they are and they don't have black people's back? What are you going to do?" And he had me stuck. You know what I thought about it? I'm going to do everything that I can to make sure that Corey Bowman does not become the mayor of Cincinnati. Is what I'm going to do personally. I'm going to fight against Corey Bowman. If he wants to come and use racism against black people, I'm going to use my black conservative voice to make sure he don't get elected if he had a chance to get elected. I'm going to use my political prowess and my skill set and make a couple phone calls if they don't switch their course. And I'm going to help people who I know help Mark Mallory get elected. I'm going to sit back and I'm going to show them all my tricks of the trade to make sure that everything Corey Bowman does, we get countered. That's what I'm going to do.
But okay.
What do you guys think about Victoria Parks? She made some comments and she's been under fire. She basically went on, I believe it was X, formerly Twitter, and said that the individuals in the video begged for that beat down. She's doubled down on it since then in a subsequent interview. You've got at least 2 members of Cincinnati City Council that have put out statements basically criticizing her. And these are fellow Democrats. But what do you think about her statement? Was she wrong? Is it wrong for a public official to say that? Or is she right and people just don't like it and they're taking out of context?
Well,
go ahead, Mack.
Yeah. Well, 2 things. One, I don't want to miss this point, but Tarris mentioned that there's a cookout, and I want to make sure I get invited to that. Figure out how I get the invitation to participate. But secondly, I think this is where when we talk about Park's comments and I think to some extent Kearney's, although less so, Lemon Kearney, it seems like this is where you need the mayor, right? Because I think you can do both things, right? Like I think it's okay to decry to keep the focus on the perpetrators of the violence that we saw. It's okay to say that that's wrong, and it's okay to also decry the sort of the social media and overt racism that we see among some people online. And I think it's also like where the mayor steps in is to be able to say, and I think this is the challenge, right? That the folks who were participating, kicking 2 helpless people on the ground and knocking out a lady, like that they don't represent the larger black community just because they're black. Likewise, the racism that we're seeing from some people online doesn't necessarily represent the white community, right? So there's this sort of there's this desire to paint other people with this broad brush, whether it's African Americans, and blaming them generally for this incident, which is not fair. And likewise, the sort of racist comments. I think there's true leadership, whether from the vice president or from the mayor, ought to be able to say both of those things. And that's where I think the sort of vacuum that we've seen in terms of leadership hasn't been able to sort of bring, we should be able to come together, white and black, Republican and Democrat, say that, that was messed up. How do we move forward in a way that doesn't divide us, and how do we move forward in a way that helps the city? Because I think a strong city is good for everybody. I live in a suburb, and I like going to the city, and I want to continue to go to the city. I think that there's sort of a dearth of leadership, more opportunism than there is leadership out there.
I would love to live in a world where what you're talking about can just be easily the defaulted way we handle these kinds of things. But because there is such a complex um relationship with racism and how it's been enacted in Cincinnati for generations, it's hard to get there first. It's hard for that to be the default, strategy when we deal with these kinds of incidents. Because unfortunately, we do still live in a city that is very much so racially divided, whether that is present, optically or not. When we deal with certain issues, politically, socially, economically, we are still very much so divided among race and class in Cincinnati. And so when we have these kinds of incidents where you're in the midst of a very heavily populated area of black people who I keep seeing people say, well, disconnect this situation from Jazz Fest because it wasn't about Jazz Fest. And that's cool, but like that's not the way that it's being painted in the media. So we have to talk about it as such. And what's being said is that these were all, Jazz Fest, patrons who were surrounding that area, and we know who typically goes to Jazz Fest. Most of the time it's us. And I'm not saying it's only us, but for the overwhelming majority of Jazz Fest participants is us. It has been a very black led event in the city for years, and so it becomes another quote unquote black thing in Cincinnati. And when you attach this incident to that, it paints a very deliberate picture about the public opinion of black people in the city of Cincinnati. So we have to address the race thing, and we have to address how the media has reported on this story, because it's been very full of inaccuracies and just insanely fueled by like social media. Chief Fiji said that herself, and mentioned how upset she was that police investigation has been affected by the inaccurate reporting of news outlets because they have heavily depended on social media. So like we have to discuss the complexities before we can ever get to the place that I want to get with you, Mac, which is to actually address this as a collective. But because we are so divided, it's kind of hard to do that because we don't think like a collective. We don't respond to these things like a collective.
So let me just jump in here and talk about a couple of things that Mac and Raven just said here. To go back to your initial comment about what I thought about Park's comments. The problem that we have right now is a leadership problem. And what we don't have is leaders who are able to lead and help us talk across racial differences, political differences, whatever. What Parks did is part of what we see in the political landscape of today. And when you look at some of the reactions from it, you can see why she's doubling down. There are a couple of reasons why she's doubling down. One, what Parks said is going to play well with black constituency, because there are many black people who feel like, for what Raven said, that there's been a misrepresentation, that the white folks involved in this are being painted as victims, when in fact, the one guy might have actually been the instigator that set everything off. And so I think that that's what Parks's comment sort of illustrated. And she's doubling down on it because her people are going to support that. The other reason why she's doubling down on it is because she's moving out of office. She's not concerned about not being reelected. So she has the freedom to speak and say what's on her mind. Now, having said all of that, from a leadership perspective, I don't necessarily know that it's the smartest thing to do, right? I've been pretty much consistent on this. And in fact, I even wrote a column about it a couple of weeks ago when the school board member down in Kentucky got booted off for saying that people ought to shoot Republicans on a Facebook post that was like a year or two old. Social media can get you in trouble if you are in a leadership position and you don't use better judgment about what you say on there. Victoria Parks can think and feel whatever she wants to feel in her private time, but that doesn't mean that that's necessarily the best thing to say in a leadership position where you're trying to defuse a situation and bring a city together. I think when you're in a leadership position, that always has to be in the front of your mind, not trying to score cheap political points, not trying to throw red meat to the base. That's what she did is no different than what we get mad at MAGA people for doing, for throwing red meat to their base. She was throwing meat to her base with that comment there. And so I think what we need is leaders who are not going to sort of push us toward our lowest common denominator or play to our worst emotions, but lead effectively and help us move across our differences and defuse things. I don't know that her comments defuse things, even as true as they might have been. But, these are the political times that we live in, and doubling down is certainly the political times that we live in, whether you're Democrat or Republican.
As an elected official, I would like to say I stand 10 toes down with Victoria Parks. Is that her name? I agree with her, whatever. If she said it and she believes it in her heart as an elected official, if she wants to say that, don't bootlick, don't cowtail, don't do anything. You stand on that. Just like I would suggest the David Young guy from Ross, Ohio, who's getting a lot of backlash for the racial slurs that he put on there that he made. I'm saying to that same gentleman, stand on it. As an elected official, give your people who are going to elect you. This is my opinion. As an elected official, I'm always going to speak my truth. Always. I don't care who. I don't care. So as far as Ms. Parks and her getting all this backlash about what Ms. Parks, stand on your truth. David Young, the guy in Ross who wrote that it's sickening and these animals did all this kind of stuff as an elected trustee, a member in Ross, stand on your truth. I would rather have the Johnson guy tell me his truths and be an overt racism than, like Mack said, have this covert racism as the Democrats do and say, oh, yeah, we're your friend, but constantly working behind your back to throw you underneath the bus. I want covert racism in my face. So not covert, overt racism. I want someone to let me know, hey, I'm a racist. I think of this about you and your people, so I can handle things accordingly. As far as like throwing a bone, like Victoria throwing her people a bone, that's how she felt, man. And our people, and like I'm not in Ohio, but I'm feeling this so much. I don't know why God has got this on my heart. We need leaders that are going to tell the truth, our truths. Our truth. It don't matter what the media says out there, with the mainstream media and how their narrative, and JD Vance is posting stuff before the police even put out a report, so getting his base in line and getting everybody to go along with their narrative. And then I've told y'all a bunch of times that the Republican Party is different. There's MAGA and there's Republicans. Everybody who I talk to is a Republican. They say, T, we're listening to you, and the people who are around you are saying, this is bigger than what it is. It doesn't smell right. And then you got MAGA on the other end saying, animals, racist stuff, all the racist comments that you see. I don't need to go through all that. So there's a difference. There's a divide in the Republican Party. So instead of the Republican Party going for the people who are logical, they're going for the MAGAs, and that's why I was like, I never in a million years would have thought that the JD Vances would go for the MAGA people. I thought that there was going to be a new day in the Republican Party, and the people in Cincinnati are proving me wrong. So I stand behind Victoria Parks as an elected official. Say whatever you want, ma'am. And the David Young from Ross, you want to be racist, sir? Be as racist as you want to as an elected official. I'm sure there's going to be some people out there who will support your racism. And there are also going to be people who are not going to support it, and they will definitely not vote for you.
I would just add on to what Tarris said, just to make my point clear. I'm not suggesting that Victoria Parks shouldn't speak her truth, shouldn't say what's in her heart, but I do think that there are ways in which you can express that are constructive versus destructive. You can speak your truth, but you don't have to speak your truth in ways that aren't going to help the situation. And that's all I'm saying. I don't know that any destructive conversation on either side of this debate helps us get to where we want to go. We can still speak truth. We can have tough conversations. We can deal with things head on. But there's a way that you can do that that's constructive versus destructive.
I'm gonna bring it back to what something y'all told me a long time ago when they were talking about you're eating the cats, you're eating the dogs. Whenever we were on this place, and JD Vance and Donald Trump were saying, they're eating the cats and they're eating the dogs. And I was like, that's so funny. That's so funny. Ha ha, he he. And then you're like, and y'all were telling me, when it happens to you, and when it touches you, it's going to feel different. This situation in Cincinnati, where I'm invested in making sure that doing my job, and then you got people coming in and actively spinning narratives that are not true. And then, okay, and say if Victoria doesn't come out with her statement, That's not going to give any the black people are going to see like, what is our leadership going to do? Just turn the other cheek like they expected us to do when this Russian came out of the club picking a fight with us. They want us to turn the other cheek. Which leadership is going to have the backbone to say, no, that's not, this is a new day. It's a new time. And we're not doing this anymore as a black community.
Well, and if I could just say one thing, I think that one of the challenges of Park's remarks, and I think you see this with Lemon Kearney as well, is you know, for a long time we've seen a lot of media reports that talk about Donald Trump said without evidence. Like a lot of phones out there, I haven't seen any evidence that these people actually instigated the fight. We did see a slap.
Stay tuned, Matt. Stay tuned, Matt. There's more.
Okay,
coming.
well, and I think that's but I think that's important. But I think it's interesting that like nobody has actually stated what they said, because if it's true, that's fine. If it's not true, it's libelous. So everybody's being very careful.
It's true. I can assure you it's true, okay. Mac. And as
I think that's important. I think
there's actually some evidence that's going to be
I think that's important context for people, and it probably doesn't change the reality that there are things you could, you know, nobody would have a problem with that guy getting punched in the mouth if that's actually what happened.
I also would just like to insert that in the foot. I've seen the original video, the one where it's the Russian guy. They're saying that he's a Russian immigrant. That the Russian guy and the black guy, who I believe was just charged with felonious and aggravated assault or something because of it. And he was the one who was standing there in the red shirt, and they were going back and forth. In the very beginning of the video, you hear that black man say to him, "That was my car you kicked." I heard that loud and clear. So based on just that alone, if he never said any other racial comments, based on that alone, this guy is out here damaging people's property, or at least intending to, and because of that is being confronted about that behavior. I don't think that's like out of the realm of if you are walking around and kicking people's car, and then I see you kick my car, I'm going to confront you about that, because why are you doing that? That's just, it's unacceptable in itself. I'm going to confront you about that. And then if we get into a verbal altercation, of course, if we getting loud and stuff like that, people are going to congregate. And you also have your group of friends standing behind you, because that's not being pointed out in any of this either. This man also had a group of friends with him as I guess backup or whatever. I don't know. They might have all been out on the town that night and watched their friend do this stuff, or maybe possibly joined him in doing it, whatever the case may be. But if your friend is getting into a verbal conflict, you and you standing there just watching it, you appear to be on your friend's side. You're definitely not getting in the middle of it and breaking nothing up and saying, "Hey, he's just drunk. We're gonna take him this way. You have a great rest of your night. If any damages need to be paid for, we'll try to arrange that at some other time. But he's too drunk to have this conversation with you." That's not what happened. You stood there while your drunk friend was held accountable for what he did, and he himself initiated the violence by slapping him. At that point, all bets are off. All bets are off. Because I don't even know that man. But as a black woman in this city that knows the implications of racism here, I'm not gonna let you slap that black man and then allow you and your friends to further take the opportunity to jump on him and physically assault. Like, I'm just not gonna do that. I'm just sorry.
But all bets aren't off, right? Like, you can punch somebody in the mouth who in a one-on-one altercation, but when you've got people kicking a guy who's on the ground, has been knocked down, and you've got 5 or 6 people attacking a guy, that crosses the line into felonious assault. Like, that's not.
But Mac, that's why the racial component is important.
We live in a society.
But that's why the racial component is important, because let's say right here on this podcast, and I know you would never do this. Let's say right here, right now on this podcast, you called me specifically the N-word. Every black person listening, watching, and commenting on this panel is going to be offended, because that's not just offensive to me particularly. That's offensive to all black people. So if you are running around downtown kicking people's cars and calling people N-words, Everybody's offended. Everybody, as soon as you take stuff a little too far on your end, we all have license to whoop your behind because you have been racially offensive to everybody in the vicinity for at least an amount of time that we all are aware of it and know about it.
Well,
You gonna get beat
the
up.
law doesn't recognize that. The law does not recognize that you get,
Well, the law
5 or
does
6 or
recognize a lot
7
of
people can
moral
beat the hell
issues.
out of somebody on the ground
If the
and
law
kick them
was,
in the head.
the law wasn't
That's not-
involved in this. The law wasn't involved with this until after the fact. This is not a good. Where's the victim at in here? Where is the victim that called the police officers and filed the report? In Kentucky, in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, it's called we're a Commonwealth, so there is a no fault state. If you get in trouble, if the situation like this and happen in Cincinnati or in Kentucky, everybody's getting charged because we're a Commonwealth state. In Cincinnati, if I'm not mistaken, there has to be charges filed. Where's the victim? Who filed the assault charge? These people who are there, they're getting these people on back warrants and stuff like that. But where are I'll say this, I know there's a bigger investigation going on behind this case. A bigger investigation that the Department of Justice, the feds, they're all in on this. My thing, and I'll say this on this podcast, stop making black people out to be the bad people all the time, especially in this case when the Russian immigrant who is not even born on this soil comes out and picks a fight with people who had to deal with so much ancestral trauma from chattel slavery to Reconstruction to civil rights to Jim Crow, all that kind of stuff too. Just a couple months ago, the Ku Klux Klan coming and standing on a bridge, and then you're going to come outside of a club kicking people's cars talking about, I'm going to take that N-word, I'm going to take that N-word. Oh, what you going to do about it, N-word? Because in Russia they have no regard for black people. They don't care. He was blacked out drunk, so he probably didn't realize what he was doing. So in that situation, I agree. And I said this on the last podcast. He got away. He was able to Uber himself out of there. There wasn't no ambulance. He wasn't getting none of that. This was a bar fight that is being politicized and turned into something bigger than what it is. I've been in worse bar fights than this myself.
Can I say?
Tarris is 100% right that the politicization of this is what has exploded it, and you can't ignore the racial dynamic that has made it easy to explode and politicize. You can't separate those two from the conversation. Tarris is absolutely right. This is a bar fight. Look, if we want to be honest about this, everybody involved, including the guy who wound up taking the beat down, is responsible, has a air of responsibility in this. The way it has been portrayed and politicized is it's this poor white guy who's getting stomped on by all of these black people for no reason whatsoever, right? So the context of how the thing got started, it matters, because there perhaps would not have been an altercation to this level if the guy had kept his chill, hadn't been drunk, hadn't slapped, hadn't used racial slurs. You probably don't have 6 or 8 people or however many people it is jumping in there, jumping on this guy. So the thing that's aggravating, I think, for a lot of black people in this conversation is he's being portrayed as a victim. So when people say that there are no victims in it, hey, look, if I take a swing on you and then whatever happens after that, I'm not innocent in this. Like, that's the point. Victim implies some form of innocence. This guy wasn't innocent or just defending himself in the situation. He might have, in fact, set it off when all is said and done and the details come out. That's not how it's currently being portrayed. Now, I stand on 10 toes down. You don't punch a woman in the face. I've said that on a previous podcast. There's no excuse for that. I don't know all the details about how she got involved, but if there is any victim in this, she might be the closest thing to it out of this whole thing. But I think what people are saying, I don't think black people in general say, don't hold the people responsible in it who did it. Nobody is saying that what they did was right. I think what people are saying is indict everybody, who is involved, who has an air of responsibility. Do what the police chief said. If you did anything violent or you were a part of this cause, charge them as well. And so I think that is what people are asking for. Black people are asking for. And I think what's getting confused in the narrative and twisted mainly by white folks is to try to say that black people are somehow or another permissive of what has happened. I'm not hearing any black person say, hey, what happened is all right. What I'm hearing them say is, dude set this off and he helped create what turned out to be an ugly incident. I haven't heard anybody say that they shouldn't, be held accountable for what they did. But what I do hear people saying is, hold this guy accountable too and stop painting him as some innocent guy who was just walking down the street minding his own business.
Can I
Listen,
ask a question?
there's a
Ask
lot of
question.
people. There's a lot of people that benefit from division. They benefit from pitting white versus black and Democrat versus Republican and East Coast versus West Coast and South versus North and North versus South. And that's what's happening right here. See, for me, if I'm born and raised in Cincinnati, if you don't start nothing, then 9.99% of the time, nobody's going to start anything with you. And as much as race is a part of this because of the racial makeup of the people involved and the fact that perhaps a racial epithet was used, but at the core of this is about people. Because let's say you take this Russian guy, let's say he was a black guy. If he was a black guy and did the exact same thing,
This would not be national news.
the exact same thing would have happened in terms of how people reacted. As a black person, if I go to another black person's family barbecue and I'm damaging their car and calling them names, I'm going to get the same thing. If these were all white people, and a white person did the same thing, disrespecting people, the same thing could have happened. To me, at this core, this is about human decency. It's about respecting people. It's about how you interact with people. The race part has nothing to do with it. This is how human beings interact when they feel disrespected, right or wrong. It could have been all white people. It could have been all Croatian people. It could have been all Hispanic people. If you bring that kind of energy to the party, you're going to get it back no matter what the race is. That could have happened to anybody. Could have happened to anybody. But the powers that be, and this is just my opinion, it seems like the Republican Party wants to use this to criticize Democrat leadership. We saw the same thing in California. I don't think this is good in terms of public policy. Right now, you got Ohio State police that are going to be coming here. Why? It seems like a waste of their resources and time. The situation has already been taken care of, but we saw the same thing in California, where the federal government deployed the military and the National Guard, and in some cases, they were just sitting around doing nothing. It's a colossal waste of our taxpayer resources when a situation has already been dealt with, just like here in Cincinnati. We don't need the Ohio State police. We don't. For what are they going to do? To do what? It was a fight. Has already been over with. Cincinnati is not any more lawless than any other city. Crime is going to happen no matter where you are because that's just human beings. But it's been completely politicized, in my opinion. And unfortunately, we the taxpayers, black, white, Democrat, Republican, we all have to pay for this, unfortunately, now.
Yeah, Nathan, you hit on a really, really strong and good point. And the Ohio State Highway Patrol coming down, spending $2 million more on police officers for overtime on downtown. These are optic moves. I hear a lot of people mostly have criticized some of the efforts that City Council has already done to reduce violence as sort of optics, the midnight basketball, some of the other things that we hear people criticize. They say that those are optic moves that the city are doing to pander to a constituency. This extra police presence is the same thing. It's no different. If you believe that those other things are optics, which I don't, I actually think those are effective tools that you're trying to do to reduce violence. If you criticize that as optics, you absolutely have to look at this as optics. And here's why this is optics, is because they need to make people feel like again, mostly white constituents feel like downtown is safe. That I can go downtown, I can shop, I can go to a Reds game. Most black people ain't concerned about this. Let's just be honest. Most black people are not overly concerned about not being safe downtown. Now, that's not to say that there aren't some who are going to say that or who might even actually feel that way. But by and large, black people are not worried about the safety of downtown. Look, I work downtown every day. I do a lot of events downtown. Downtown is relatively safe. 9.5 times out of 10, if you are downtown, during regular hours, ain't nothing gonna happen to you. But a panhandler might roll up on you. You might have to deal with somebody but but you're not going to have to deal with any kind of serious safety concern with you downtown. It's relatively safe. Now, if you out after 2-3 o'clock in the morning, hey, you know, that's anywhere. You know, you go anywhere, you take your chances at a certain time of night. But these are the optic moves that they have to do to make a certain constituency feel safe, to take down some of the national heat right now. Let's realize that a lot of this is bringing down that national temperature to make it look like Cincinnati is doing something. These are optical moves that the city is making right now that I happen to think are overkill. And this is the type of knee-jerk reaction that I wrote about earlier in the week that leads to bad policy and waste of taxpayer dollars. If you think $2 million of city taxpayer dollars needs to be spent downtown to improve safety, then Jeff Cramerding and whoever else on council needs to make the same compelling case and produce the same evidence beyond just this brawl as to why $2 million needs to be spent. It shouldn't just be a blank check now for police and public safety to get whatever they want because a certain constituency is afraid to go downtown. We need to scrutinize this. We need to look at it. We need to make sure that we're making smart decisions with taxpayer dollars and doing things that are actually going to result in more and safer streets, not just dumping a bunch of cops downtown who are going to be standing around doing nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
During the daytime when you're already safe.
Go ahead, Mack.
I would just point out that, I mean, one of the things, maybe the potential value here, right, is that Cincinnati is acknowledged by the police chief and everybody else 100 officers below what it ought to be. They don't have the personnel that they need to cover big events like this, especially when you have all the traffic and everything like that. And so I think there could be a benefit, particularly if the state police are doing some of that more routine stuff like traffic control, to where the police force starts to feel like it's at the number that we think it ought to be at. I mean, the fact that they have fenced off the banks because is sort of an acknowledgement that the city doesn't have control or doesn't feel like it has control of the situation when it comes to big events and downtown events that happen on a regular basis, like parties at the general activities at the banks. Putting up fencing and other things like that is a sign of insecurity. It's not a sign of security at all.
I would agree. It's a sign of insecurity, but you're talking about on the banks. Yeah, we talked about that, Mac, and it didn't work. You know, they put up the fence and they still feel insecure. There was still a shooting, 3 weeks after they put the fence up. I think it's more of a sign of who we are as Cincinnati. Like, there are some things that Cincinnati does really well. Like, back in the day, our public schools used to produce the absolute best cheese pizza. We were great at that. Not so much world-class before and after school programs, but we made a hell of a cheese pizza. And in Cincinnati, we are really good at putting up gilded fences. We love fences. We love to put up borders. We love to separate ourselves. And it just reeked of elitism to me. I mean, that's a knee-jerk reaction when people feel insecure. Let's build up a barrier, right? And it's just not going to work. We need a holistic, long-term plan. But let's talk about city council. So you got Jeff Cramerding, Democrat. To me, it feels like a knee-jerk reaction. Now he wants $2 million for this and that and more patrols. I'm like, okay, we don't even know what really happened all the way yet. And then you had two members of city council, Mika Owens. She comes up again. She's being criticized because she put out a statement in which she criticized and distanced herself from Victoria Parks. And there was one other member of city council as well. I can see his face, but I can't remember his name. He put out a similar statement and said, hey, this isn't what council should be doing, and I don't agree with what Victoria Park said. What do you think about this sort of like separation on city council itself? Like, would we expect, they're all Democrats, they all know each other, will we expect them to have more solidarity, or is that unrealistic, or is this just politics and is every man and or woman for themselves?
Yeah, I think even within the framework of one party rule, I mean, I think you tend to see this, whether it's Republicans. I lived in, well, I still live in Butler County, but I worked in Butler County for a long time where it was all Republican, and, Republicans would wind up cannibalizing each other. So one party rule doesn't mean monolithic thought, and politics is politics. People are still making their calculations on their base, who's going to support them. As I mentioned in my column, a city council election is breathing down all of their necks. They're all making their political calculations about where I need to be with my constituency and get reelected. And I think that's what Cramerding and Mika Owens, and as I mentioned, Victoria Parks is not running for reelection, so she don't really care. But all of them are making political calculations about where they need to be on this particular issue and where they need to come down based on who their voters are and who they think they want to come in with. Now, some of that is cynical. This is how they could really feel. Mika Owens could really feel that, Victoria Parks's comments were out of bounds, not anything she would have said, and she personally wants to distance herself from that. That could be the case. I may be approaching this somewhat cynically, just putting it all on politics, but that is a big part of it, is making those sorts of calculations. I think Cramerding, one of the things that I didn't like about what he said in his comments, and I get where he was kind of coming from, where he was saying sort of like the genesis of the brawl was sort of irrelevant. I don't agree with that at all. I think, maybe his larger point was, hey, we got to deal with what happened in the aftermath and improving safety, which I don't disagree with, but I think to sort of downplay the concerns that many residents have about the genesis and the meaning of that, I think was disrespectful to a certain, and maybe even a little bit cold to a certain part of the constituency in his commentary there. So I'm not surprised by it. It's politics. We're in an election year, and everybody is trying to stake out.
Hey guys, Mack has to leave soon, and I want to hit another topic. We can come back to this, but I want to talk about this Sydney Sweeney American Eagle controversy. I mean, it's really high. Everybody's been talking about it, and I want to get it in before he has to roll. So to do so, I want to play the ad for you. So American Eagle is, I understand that they're an apparel company. They do denim and jeans and things like that. And Sydney Sweeney,
they were very popular when I was in high school. Like it was a very, like, it was a thing. If you were wearing like either American Eagle or like Aeropostale, those were like the main two brands that we were wearing in high school.
Yeah. And Sydney Sweeney is a young actress. She is in a phenomenal HBO series. I'm not sure if you're hip to it. It's called Euphoria. It's one of the better ones they've ever done. And HBO has a long history of really good TV. You might want to check it out. It may be your cup of tea. It may not be, but it's very good. But check this out. So this ad has everybody talking. Check this out.
I'm not here to tell you to buy American Eagle jeans. And I definitely won't say that they're the most comfortable jeans I've ever worn. Or that they make your butt look amazing. Why would I need to do that? But if you said that you want to buy the jeans, I'm not going to stop you. But just so we're clear, this is not me telling you to buy American Eagle jeans.
Sydney Sweeney has very jeans.
You see what I did there, right?
Oh, people are saying that this is sort of like a double entendre, double meaning. Like, not only does she have great jeans on, but because she is a blonde-haired, blue-eyed woman, she's got great jeans. And people are saying that, this is bringing up some troubling feelings for them. On the other side, it's straight comedy hour. Like, I would say more conservative people are having a good time with this. It's the whataboutisms. People are talking about a similar ad that wasn't American Eagle, but it was Beyonce in some jeans. And they're really trying to have some fun with it and kind of poke the bear and poke at liberals. But what do you think? Is this troubling? Some people are saying that this is the beginning of people heavily promoting whiteness as a thing again, and that could be potentially troubling. What do you think?
Could you, I think it's really important that we watch that 2 or 3 more times through to fully grasp the full thing.
There's also, I want to put out there, there's also another, because this is the whole ad campaign. Yeah. There's another video that makes it a lot more obvious than this particular video.
Yes.
I'm looking
Yeah,
for it now.
it talks about her jeans being blue in reference to her eyes. Sydney Sweeney's eyes are really blue, so it actually does. She actually does say that she
Great
has
genes.
something like good jeans and they're blue, right? And it's sort of zooms in on her eyes. So that's again playing in on sort of that blonde hair, blue eyed, white supremacist mentality, which is where a lot of
Do
people
you
are
think
getting
that
that
was the
from. So
intent?
Absolutely. It was obvious. It was a play on it was like it was kind of guys that's like a joke so that it could be purposefully correctly interpreted and misinterpreted. Like on the surface, if you don't deep it on the surface, it looks like, oh, this is just a joke that they're doing in this ad to kind of reference, her actual gene. Like it's a play on words. All it is a play on words. She's just talking about she's just switching out the word GENES for JEANS, and it's just a play on words. It's totally innocent. But when you actually think about what that means and what's underneath that joke is, you're actually saying that a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white woman has the best genes. Does that not sound eerily similar to a philosophy that a now past dictator once held, and it created all these other issues for a particular group of people? Like it's one of those things that this entire ad campaign, because Sydney Sweeney herself is already shrouded in controversy because of some other things that she's done. So at this point, I feel like a lot of these companies are just using Sydney Sweeney in general to generate controversy, because in this day and age, all controversy is great publicity. So they're using her specifically for this ad and then taking it up a notch, doing this little play on words and killing two birds with one stone. You're generating controversy because it's Sydney Sweeney, but also you're now doing this play on words and kind of emphasizing this idea that if you're blonde and you're blue eyed, you have the best genes. It's purposeful.
Is this troubling though? I mean, is this something that we should be concerned about? Because what the other side of say, what people will say is that, what about all the Black is Beautiful campaigns? What about the campaigns in which, they purposely try to promote the, African American or non-white aesthetics as being beautiful as well? Is this any different?
I got a different take on it.
So I want to I have some thoughts, but Mac, you got to go. So I want to make sure you get your thoughts in beyond wanting to watch Sydney
Yeah.
Sweeney 4 or 5 more times.
I mean,
I want to make sure we get
again, it's easy for me here, but it just strikes me that we're probably overthinking things like that. Listen, it's a play on words. Could it have a deeper meaning? Could there? I think most of the time we think there's some sort of broader plan. This is something that was cooked up by some marketing people. They had 7 different choices. They were like, that one sounds good, go with that, and they didn't think much of it. Should they have thought through the idea of genetics being sort of potentially problematic? Yeah, possibly would have been, maybe, but I think they're probably, laughing all the way to the bank, because we're talking about, their gene commercial. And I think it's nebulous enough or uncertain enough that, like, I think very few consumers are going to be, honestly, I didn't even know American Eagle was still a thing. But I shop at Target, so that's my fashion sense. So my sense is that we're probably overthinking it. And they're benefiting from the fact that we are talking about their product and we're talking about Sydney Sweeney. I do think it just lends itself to this sort of, everything's sort of, we got to find a division, and we got, do white, blonde-haired, blue-eyed people have good genes? Or are we talking about the Sydney Sweeney? One of the most beautiful women in America, not to the exclusion of other beautiful women in America, including my wife. There are, I'm not sure that it was meant to be a deep message, other than the fact that saying that Sydney Sweeney is really hot and she wears our jeans, and maybe that would have been a better, and less problematic tagline. But I doubt they thought. I doubt they thought very deeply about it.
Really, this is a multi-million-dollar campaign that they're investing, and you don't think they thought about every avenue of it? That you don't think they focus tested? Of course they did, Matt.
Hey, let me say this though, Nathan. And I'll seize on what you just said and what I think Mac just said. First of all, Mac, great save there for yourself and your marriage by throwing your wife in there. You damn well better had threw your wife some dimes after those compliments that you gave Sydney Sweeney. So hats off to that. That proves Mac is a thinking man. I think this was just a bad marketing campaign all the way around. My first inclination was to kind of be like Mac, like maybe are we overthinking this a little bit? And here's what I would say is regardless of whether or not it was intentional or not, it's just bad marketing for a couple of different reasons. One, you can't have Sydney Sweeney. Everybody knows Sydney Sweeney's claim to fame is her chess game, not her butt game. So you can't have Sydney Sweeney back there rubbing the back of them jeans where it looked like she been hit with a frying pan, talk about how nice her butt was. If you're gonna have that line in a marketing commercial, get you a celebrity that's got a little bit more junk in the trunk back there to show off those jeans than Sydney Sweeney does. That's not her claim to fame. Okay, that's the first reason why it's bad marketing. The second reason why it's bad marketing is if they didn't, to your point, Nathan, if they didn't focus group this, if they didn't think through, because in these days and in this day and age, everything that you do and that you put out in the public sphere is going to be scrutinized and torn to pieces by people, and they're going to be looking for openings. And we've gotten into this conversation before. I can't remember what it was. I think it was like some wax candle company that had some labeling that looked like KKK masks going around. You remember that, Nathan? We talked about that on a previous podcast. And we were talking about whether that was done intentionally. And we talked about at that time how somebody in their marketing department should have focus tested that or looked at it and thought about it. So it's a failure on many levels for American Eagle. Not a failure maybe financially or from a public conversation point, because I think Mac is right. If you adopt the Donald Trump strategy, there's no such thing as bad press and people are talking about you and your product. That's a good thing on some level. But I think just from a standard good marketing standpoint, I think this was a miss on so many levels that is not even funny. But I can't tell you with any degree of certainty that I think it was intentional.
Oh, it was certainly intentional. I think. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tarris.
Oh, I was going to say I believe it's intentional. I have a subsidiary company, T-shirt company, and it's called Corny Kids Clothing. It's actually a company. You can go look it up on Google it. And go to the website, buy some clothes. KORNYKIDZKOLING. Corny Kids Clothing. And I had the shirt on the other day. It says Wrong Generation. It had the KKK. I got a KKK logo on there. And that's my little small T-shirt company that I have umbrella underneath on my leg. And it's intentional that I have that KKK on there because I got people walking around with my shirts on with KKK on there that they bought from a black man. That being said, with the American Eagle ad, I believe it's intentional for those very reasons. And I'll go a little bit deeper with the birth rate, not birth rating on them. They got to make them 6 o'clock girls look better to get these guys going out there to try to want to create babies with them, because they're not trying to market to us. They're not marketing to people who like girls with big booties. They're marketing to them 6 o'clock girls who that's who they want to go get them jeans to. So they're going to get and make that a desirable look. Though for the guys, the guys who like that flat booty look are going to more go after it so they can increase the birth rate that is dwindling in the toilet. That's my take on it.
Well, that's hilarious on some levels, man. I don't think that it's an underreaction to keep your eyes on trends. Some could be positive, some could be negative. I don't think this, to me, is kind of taking a shot at the woke mob, right? The woke people are going to really be upset about this. Dunkin' Donuts has an ad out, which is very similar, in which people are criticizing and is kind of saying the same thing. But in that ad, it's a young, very attractive white male, blue eyes, and he's just talking about how his golden skin and his jeans. And this is an interesting trend. I think you're going to see more of this. And I think it's brilliant. Even though I don't like the themes of it, it's brilliant in terms of their marketing because everybody's talking about it. And time will tell. if this is not purposely to sort of promote whiteness, which in and of itself, I don't have a problem with. If white people want to be proud about being white, you should be. If you want to say you got good genes, you should. What's wrong with that? As a black man, I feel proud to be who I am. So we have to give the same latitude and space for white people or whoever else as well, Hispanics, Asians. If you're proud about who you are and your heritage and your genes and you want to say it, go right ahead. What'll be interesting is, I think, what if the next American Eagle jean commercial is not Sydney Sweeney, but it's a young black girl? And she says the same thing, right? Hey, I got good genes. That tells me that they're sort of playing with fire, right? They understand what they're doing, but they're kind of playing at fire, and they're not necessarily trying to promote one race over another, right? That would bring, to me, that would be brilliant to get, I don't know, whoever you name it, I don't know, Ari Lennox. She might look good in some jeans. And she says the same thing that Sydney Sweeney said, I got good genes. Okay, great. Now I see what you're trying to do. It's not necessarily about just promoting white people. You really got this sort of edgy ad campaign. I don't know if they're going to do that or not, but I'm kind of waiting to see what their next move is.
I think it's everything that's been stated so far, but also, like I was saying before, Sydney Sweeney herself just has a certain level of controversy surrounding her that I think plays into this. Like, I think if it wasn't for the other controversy attached to her, it might not have been as big of a deal. I think that recently, I think she was like seen in a family photo with a bunch of her relatives wearing MAGA hats, and so that played into this whole racial element, or this whole like, well, what are you really saying? Because people are now associating her with MAGA, with people who have proven to kind of have certain, racist and xenophobic ideals and beliefs. And so if you can make that connection between her and those beliefs, you can also now interpret that anything that she's involved with, and any company that would put out a campaign such as this, the assumption is that they're aware of her controversy, and it might even be a possible reason why they chose her for this ad campaign. And so when you do something like this, where you play with that particular word and you play with that particular double meaning of it, it becomes a whole thing.
Yeah. I think that Raven is right on the money. I mean, people are going to associate, it may not have had anything to do with it, but people are going to associate what she talked about, wearing the MAGA hat and all of that with the commercial. I mean, it's just more fuel to the fire to people who want to see that or want to believe that, that's in there. Here's part of the reason why I think it might be a little bit of overkill, though, and how we might possibly be overthinking this is, what I don't want to put a percentage on it, but if I did, I would say 75% of the commercials that you watch on TV pretty much already promote white supremacy, whether intentionally or not, by the sheer fact that they're mostly white people in the commercials. Now, we've made some advancements. Commercials have become more diverse. You have more black people in commercials now, and more people of different genders and sexual orientations in commercials now. We've certainly made progress. But commercials have largely been and continue to be featuring, people like Sydney Sweeney, white people of a certain type, that are hawking products, to us. So this notion that they have to be subversive or subliminal in trying to make us think that white is better, you're missing most of the products and magazines and things that they put on you that feature women that look just, I mean, what have black women talked about for years is that, you have these slim white models on magazines and hawking products and making people think you have to look a certain way in society to be accepted. That's always been the way products have been marketed.
We've kind of gotten away from that, though.
Nice looking white men and women, to portray.
We've kind of gotten away from
so
that.
That's not anything.
Yeah, but
new.
TV's more diverse now, right? We've moved away from that.
I said that it's more diverse, but still the majority of the images that you see are that, right? Yeah, there are a few more black women out there now, and
It's
Procter
more
and
than a few.
Gamble and other companies have made it a priority. And now your cereal commercial might have a biracial couple in it versus a white family sitting around talking about a perfectly balanced breakfast. Yes, there's more diversity, but make no mistake, it is not trumped the primary imagery, which is still white imagery in most of the products.
Yeah, that's true, but that's not really the point, though. So the more you were talking, I'm thinking, yeah, this is definitely a culture war thing. You know, to me, the more I think about this, is definitely the American Eagle saying whiteness is good. Because again, for years, black people have been talking about black is beautiful, black excellence. And so now what I'm starting to realize is that people were sitting back watching that maybe with jealous and envious eyes. So now they want to promote that white is excellent and white is, good genes. And I get it. Like on some levels, I'm like, okay, if that's what you want to do, you go right ahead and do this. I think that this ad is not geared toward the masses. I think this ad is primarily focused on white people that might get into what they're saying. And I think there's a possibility of this being dangerous on some levels. If we see more and more. Like I said, there's a Dunkin' Donuts ad. I can play it for you here in a second. And it's very similar, only in this one, it's a very attractive young white guy. And it's a dope ad. It's a really nice ad. And I can see people connecting with it. And now they want to be king of the summer and have a golden skin and all this kind of stuff. And
But I think though, Nathan, I guess my point is, do you really think that people are outside of us? Do you think that the broader community is looking at that commercial with Sydney Sweeney and thinking like, oh, this is some grand white supremacist plan to get us to think that white is good or white is right, if you will? Or are most people, particularly men, sitting back looking at that and like, hey, this is a nice looking woman. If that's your type, I just don't. I think the overthinking it part that Mack hit on is I think that most people aren't thinking about it that deep when they're watching the commercials. I think that they see what it is and they're reacting to it. And I guess that's my larger point, is that those are images that we have seen in America throughout the history. That's why I said white women like Sydney Sweeney or attractive white men have always been in front of us. The message that white is better has always been in front of us. It's not anything new. It's even what we say and what we've had to battle throughout the history of black people and thinking that white people's ice is colder. So we'll go buy that. We'll go buy ice from the white man before we'll buy it from the black man. It is the vestiges of media imagery that has been beaten over our heads throughout the course of our lifetime. So I guess my point is this notion that there's some insidious plot to subliminally influence us that white is better. I'm not saying that's anything new. Yeah. Like, this is not a new phenomenon. Well, if it's not a new phenomenon,
then tell me, when was the last time you saw an ad like this where the spokesman was talking about how they got good genes? And it's sort of like a double meaning in it. Because I can't remember anything like that.
I mean, because it's a jeans commercial. It's a jeans commercial. So it's an appropriate play on words, clever play on words.
So what do they mean by that? If it's a play on words, then what are they trying to say?
I said,
if it's a play on words, Kevin, what are they trying to say? Not only are they selling jeans, because you just said it's a play on words. So what are they saying? I mean, to me,
they're saying the play on words itself defines the fact that the underlining point is that we are also saying we have the best genes, but so does she. That's the point.
What they're saying.
Yeah.
Well, she didn't say the best
good
genes.
She
said
good genes. So I don't remember in my lifetime. I can't remember ever seeing an ad like that. So yeah, there's a proliferation of white people in media. We know that, but I can't remember ever seeing an ad say anything like that so blatantly, right? Because there's degrees of everything. I just don't remember that. And so I think when I hear people say, oh, we're overplaying it, that's just people that don't want to deal with what they're seeing. It's just a way of sort of like disregarding it. Because this is very, very clear to me.
I don't think it's a way of disregarding it in terms of, you absolutely could be right on point with everything that you're saying and what the intent was and what they're trying to do. For me, I guess what I'm saying is it's overkill. in my opinion, because the marketing historically has always been that. I think if that is intentional, it says something about the fragile psyche of white folks who feel like this is necessary. Maybe they see it as some sort of counter to DEI or whatever, but it speaks to the fragility that you feel that this is necessary when 75 to 80% of the marketing already features you anyway and sends us
but Kevin,
that
we
message.
know,
But that's
we know
the
the whole
point,
attacks
though.
against DEI are overkill and it's really fragile. We know that. But again,
Exactly.
there's a connection between what we've seen happen in the federal government and what we now see happening culturally in terms of these ad campaigns. There is this ain't no coincidence.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think it's smart marketing. I do. I can see them selling a lot of jeans. I don't begrudge them. I'm not saying they shouldn't make it. It doesn't really bother me that much. Again, I don't have a problem with white people should be happy about their culture. Everybody should be happy about their background. The fact that you want to celebrate you have good genes doesn't necessarily bother me. But for some reason, it feels like when black people say black is beautiful and black excellence, it feels like that bothers other people. The more and more I'm looking at everything, it's like our joy and our celebration about certain things bothers other people. But when
Because
I
our
see other people
sensitivities are
happy, it
derived
doesn't
from
bother
different
me.
places. Our sensitivities are derived from different places. Our sensitivity comes from going from a place where there was zero representation to now finally getting bits and pieces of it. Their sensitivity derives from a place of I see myself everywhere, and seeing myself everywhere is starting to shrink, and I don't like that because I prefer a world where I see myself everywhere over everybody else. And so now I have to do something because the inflated image that I have for myself is shrinking because now over the last maybe 20, 30, maybe 40 years, I have been forced to consume content that highlights the validity of another person's right to have representation. And I don't like it because I prefer a world where I am the end all be all. That our sensitivities are derived from two different places. And so I would even be willing to say that because of this appeal of DEI and all the other things that are sure to come in the next 3 or 4 years, we're gonna see a lot more like this. This is they finally have the opportunity to start putting things in place and taking us back in time to a place where they could openly and blatantly say white is right and black is whack.
I
Just to
agree.
be
I agree
real
with
simple about it.
I agree with Raven on a lot of what she said. That's a very good take on that. I want to add white people, a lot of the majority of the white people that I know, and I grew up with a lot of white people, they just don't like to see black people having fun. They don't. Hence this weekend. I agree. I think that's a lot that happened to do with it. A lot of black people were having fun. This white guy's spirit was activated because he had too much alcohol in him. And I was in Texas one time and I walked up on this dude and he was just sitting there and he was saying N-word over and over. N-word, 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 singing the N-word song, kind of like that girl from UK when she went to UK and she was walking in the elevator and she went up there and she was singing this nursery rhyme N-word song that their great-grandparents teach them when they're very young. So that being said, I agree with what Raven was said. It's like when they say, oh, we're not the focus of attention, we're not the center of attention, we're going to do whatever we can to bring the center of attention back to us. But I think it's going to be a failed attempt because nobody's wearing American Eagles jeans. And this, with the new world that we're living in, yeah, that might have flew some years ago, like at say 2010 when American Eagle was fly. When you go to mall, Abercrombie and Fish, you walk in, the music's bumping, it smells real good. You want to get you some of those jeans, but most women with any kind of shape can't wear them jeans. They just don't fit on your hips right. I don't like seeing girls wearing American Eagle jeans. I just don't. My wife, I don't like seeing. My wife's well shaped. And I'm like, if she wants American Eagle jeans, I'm like, please take those off. So I don't think this ad is going to hit at all. I think it's going to be a dud. And I think that they did it. It was a dog whistle, like you guys were saying. And I just wanted to say I agree with what Raven was saying because they just don't want to see black people having fun.
Yeah, dog whistle. That's a good way of putting it. Dog whistle.
I mean, it's gonna
I think
upset
it's
profit
brilliant though,
in
guys. I'll say it again. I think the ad is brilliant for the times that we live in for American Eagle. I think it's brilliant. It's brilliant because it's dancing on the edge. It's very controversial and it's got people talking about it. And when I'm looking at comments on social media, I see people saying, I'm going to get some American Eagle jeans. Like people are going to run out and buy them. Again, I think the
They will
dopest thing in
That's
sell.
the world
because
they
they're
could
willing
do.
to support the agenda within the double meaning of the ad. That's what that
Absolutely.
is.
And that's why I say, I mean, if I'm American Eagle, I'm trying to sell jeans. I'm not necessarily trying to make the world a better place. I'm trying to sell jeans, and I get it. But I think that one of the dopest things they can do, and I'm looking to see if they do this, is do another ad with a black female with the same script. That to me would be multicultural. It would make sense. It would be balanced. And I'm waiting to see if they do that. If they do, I mean,
But
bravo. It's just a home run. If they don't, it's problematic.
if they do, here's why they may do it, or they may not do it, and I think this will tell you what their true intentions were. If they stand 10 toes down on the ad and they don't do what you say they do, Nathan, then I think that it more aligns with what you and Raven are saying you think it is. I think for it to be that, you got to stand 10 toes down. If you come back and do the black ad, then it says to me either that you are bending to the public scrutiny and ridicule, which means that you probably hadn't thought it through in the first place, and maybe it wasn't super nefarious, because I doubt very seriously after this that a whole bunch of black people are going to turn around and buy, the American Eagle jeans, and you run the risk of losing what customers you did who buy into the agenda. They're going to be turned off by the fact that now you turn around and trying to sell these jeans to the black folks. So what you're proposing doesn't work, particularly if they're moving forward with the agenda that y'all think that they're
That's
moving.
what I said.
You got to stand 10 toes.
That's what I said. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to stand 10 toes down on it if this is the way that you're going. A couple of other things that you said. I think there's a difference between white pride and white supremacy. Okay, let's say that. You're absolutely right. White people, everybody should be proud of who they are, no matter what race, no matter what gender, no matter what. Be proud of who you are and who your people are. That's fine. But to the point where my pride rises to the level of where I'm saying that I'm better than you and that you're inferior to me, that is where white supremacy goes. That's different than white pride, right? White supremacy is about you are inferior, you have no value comparatively to me, and that you're not worthy. So when you're troubled by this, if you're troubled by this jean commercial, it's not just because of white pride, it's because it's to send a message that says we're the best and that others are inferior and it doesn't matter. That's the argument behind the jean thing. It's not just simply white pride. So that's where it takes it to another level. In terms of
At this point, I would say to me is white pride. And again, as black people, we love Black is Beautiful campaigns and campaigns that show us as being, more than, and campaigns that show us as being beautiful. And so for me, we got to have the same space for white folks to, promote their pride about themselves as well. Like that doesn't, I'm not endangered. I don't feel threatened by it at all. What they do next will say a whole lot about them.
I would agree with that.
I also want to kill this theory because I think it often gets said, and if there are any white members of our audience listening to this, I want to kill this narrative because this is a prevailing narrative that somehow white people are losing, that they're no longer on top. That is a false narrative by any measure that you want to look at, maybe with the exception of changing demographics and white people falling into the minority. That don't mean that black people are in the majority. We keep talking about brown skin or non-white majorities. And we know from this past election that just because you got brown skin don't mean that you are down for the cause or going to vote Democrat or whatever. We know that that's not the case. So this notion that white folks are somehow losing, I think is ridiculous. I think what it does speak to, which was kind of like my overarching point about this being overkill, if this is what they are trying to do, is that there are some who want it all, right? 90% is not good enough for some people. They want the 100. And I think that what little gains that we have been able to make, that minorities have been able to make in this country, are so discomforting to the majority that they feel like they want to portray this narrative that somehow or another they're not on top or they're losing.
I'll take it a step further than that. I believe that it is that also juxtaposed with the fact that white America is starting to more clearly be able to see the division between the classes. That's what we're watching. That's what we've been watching happen for the last 8 years between Trump's first term and then Joe Biden and now Trump again. What we've watched happen over the last 8-9 years is we've watched white America realize that there is a division there, but the reason for that division has been brushed off on the rest of us, and they have been so brainwashed in believing that we're their problem that they default to us being the issue to the problem, when it's rich white folks have never prioritized you or cared about you or been for your best interest. They've only cared about you and carried you thus far because you benefit their best interest. And so right now, when it comes to these issues that they claim that they voted for Donald Trump, when it concerns the economy and all these other things that they keep trying to say that, well, I'm not a racist. It's just I prefer the economy under Trump. No, you don't. No, you don't. Because everything that he does is not to your benefit. That can't be the truth. But you're so convinced of the fact that it's that brown person in my vicinity that is the reason for my problems that you can't unattach yourself from that idea. And so every chance that it, or every moment that looks like it might be a brown person or a black person somehow elevating themselves while you still feel like you're losing grip of all reality because your whiteness isn't protecting you from the failing economy. Your whiteness is not protecting you from losing out on certain opportunities. Your whiteness is not protecting you from all those things that the upper 1% that is white has told you that your whiteness offers you, sanction from. You're finding out that that's not the truth. And instead of blaming who was actually responsible, which is the upper 1% of white wealth, you blame us because that's what you've always done.
But think about this,
Let
Raven.
me jump in there real quick, Raven, too. Let me jump in there because the reason why they do that is because they've shown, they taught the lower class immigrants that came over from the 1920s that as long as you're not black, you're okay. When they got us economically, after Reconstruction, after the 20s, after Tulsa, after we started bringing ourselves and we got to civil rights, and then when we got to civil rights, and we have less wealth as a black community now than we did at the beginning of civil rights in 1965. So white people, as long as they are like, oh yeah, we might not be the 1%, but we're not black. At least we got $2,000 in our savings account. Black people ain't even got that. So as long as they have that there, and then as they see the birth rate, as I keep talking about the birth rate, it's like a 2.5%. Scientifically, it's impossible for them to catch up. Scientifically, it's impossible. As they see other brown people and other races, eventually they're going to be eliminated. So that's why I think that everything that they're doing is to increase the birth rate, to keep white people in power, and to keep black people economically handicapped.
Yeah, here's why black people are the problem, or have always been the problem for white people in this country, and it has nothing to do with economics, right? Throw that out the window. The conversation that we're having about black and white in this country has absolutely nothing to do with economics and everything to do with culture. And this past election shows that, because people didn't vote economically as much as they say that they did in this past election. That wasn't it. What won Trump the day were the cultural issues. And here's the thing that you have to remember in this country, that this is a country that was founded by and for white people. The culture, when white folks say American culture, they don't mean the diverse culture that we know today. They mean white culture. That's what I always mean. Whenever I hear a white person say what it means to be an American, they mean, what does it mean to be a white American? This notion of the melting pot. What is a melting pot? That means that everything that you drop into that doesn't maintain its individuality, but it's blended in, right? And what immigrants who originally came to this country did, what were they eager to do? They were eager to blend in. They were not eager to they would give up their individuality to say that they were an American. And they were accepted widely because they did that. White folks took that as, great, you're willing to come here and be exactly like us, then we'll accept you. Do what we say do, be like us, and you won't have any problems. Black people have never been that way. One, we were brought over here under completely different circumstances and always looked to be made inferior. We overcame that not only through slavery and but through civil rights to the point of defeating that culture. And then our refusal to simply say, we're not just going to assimilate, but we are going to maintain our culture and bring it in. That is what makes you the problem. What makes you the problem is, as that white Russian or a white person in general, I got to walk down the street during the Cincinnati Music Festival and deal with all of y'all and y'all culture that I don't like and that makes me uncomfortable. And I don't give a damn about the economics. I would just rather not deal with that. I got a nasty letter to the editor from a white racist in Cincinnati, sent it directly to me, that laid out a lot of things that make a lot of things very clear. And I debated whether or not I was going to come on here and read it. I ultimately elected.
Is that the same one you showed me?
Did I send it to you?
Yeah,
I think I sent it to you.
Man, I'm like, how often do you get that kind of mail?
Oh man, that was pretty bad in the grand scheme of what I normally get, but it's pretty regularly, and it's not just me. I mean, there are white reporters who receive the same email because I guess they feel like, maybe they've got a accepting audience from the white reporters. Like they're not really sending it to them to say what they said to me to them, but to express their racism.
He said it to you because you're a black man and he wanted to offend you.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I won't say what the subject letter or the subject header was to it, but there was no doubt he was sending it to me.
Oh, it was rough, bro. I mean, I've received some of that over the years back in my, commercial radio day. That was, death threats, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it was rough. I'm like, man, what is going on with you that you would send this to somebody just because they wrote an opinion piece you disagree with?
I feel like I didn't do my job enough because I didn't get a single death threat. I didn't get no hate mail. Did I even do my job well enough? Like, I didn't get none. I got some of us being mad at me and cussing me out, but I ain't never get none of that.
Yeah. And the only reason why I didn't was I was just like, I just refused to try to elevate, anybody like that and give them the sense of satisfaction to even think that I need to respond to you, in that regard. Cause that's what they want. They want you to try to respond to them. They get some kind of jolly out of that. And I'm just not willing to give that to them. But that's the battle that we're fighting. That's why we're the problem. It has nothing to do with the economics. It has everything to do with the culture, our history, and our, quite frank, unwillingness to abandon our culture and sort of become a part of the melting pot that's just, that they want you to be. And that's what they chafe against. That's why they have a problem with the Black Walk of Fame. That's why they have a problem with the Essence and the NAACP awards. It's why, even though they're not trying to acknowledge the great work and the contributions that we do, but they're offended by the fact that we refuse to bow to that and still want to acknowledge our culture. And that's really what you're battling here. It's culture. It's not economics. Don't let people tell you that, feed you that economics line. That's a convenient out to not have to say what the real is.
I think it's a combination of the two. Like I think for those white folks who want to believe that they don't have any like unconscious or inherent biases, they default to the economic side of it because that makes them feel like less of a racist. But I think for somebody who is honest about their overt racism, absolutely, what you're saying is spot on. But I think that the whole economic thing is in certain ways an excuse, but also a tool. If you believe in your heart of hearts that you don't care about anybody's race, I'm colorblind. I don't see race. If you're one of those kind of people, it 100% is about how you perceive, the flow of wealth and economics in this country, because you have been fed propaganda that teaches you that it's not about race. It's about, I don't like y'all because y'all are a strain on my resources, and that is enough for some people.
Can we address that Kevin Farmer? He said we wouldn't be. He's trying to discuss go back to the female that was struck by the man in that brawl, and he keeps picking it. So Kevin, you want some? Let me give you something. How would you feel, Kevin Farmer, if there's evidence that comes out that Holly wasn't innocent and she was in fact in the middle of the Mayhay throwing hands. And she wasn't just standing there and got sucker punched. And they slowed the video down and saw when she was getting punched, her hand was actually up here or up here when she received a punch. So will that change any of your commentary? For one, and he said he shouldn't have punched that woman, which we all know. He shouldn't have punched that woman. Yeah, he shouldn't have punched that woman. If that woman wasn't knocked out, what we've been discussing. Let's go a step further. If that woman wasn't white by being knocked out, we wouldn't be discussing this. Because if she was a black woman being knocked out, nothing to see here, baby. Nothing to see here. This white woman could. No, I'm not saying making whip. This white woman was in the mix. She's not in it. She was in the mix. It wasn't like this is the narrative that they're trying to say that this brawl hit this innocent woman, but the video footage is coming to show out. She's in the mix. She's in the mix. She's pushing. She's throwing hands.
She walked into a burning building and got burnt. That's what happened.
And she's throwing hands with the other dude with close to the vicinity of the guy who I'm not condoning anything. This is what, okay, Kevin, this is the problem that I personally have with white people. You pick a fight. What do you say? You throw stones and you hide your hand. You throw stones and you hide your hands. You play a game, you move the goalposts. And it's not fair. It's not fair. It's what nobody will ever say what happened to that lady, Holly, was right. What I'm waiting for is the video footage to come out to see her, what she did throughout this whole thing. Was she standing there? Was she trying to break it up? Was she moving away from the altercation? Was she moving closer to the altercation when all this stuff happened? I want to see it all, because the narrative that some innocent white woman got hit in the face by, she's just standing there and somebody just walked up into her and hit her, is a false narrative, Kevin. So until white America can come to that realization, and let's get on the halfway playing field, because you show us that picture over and over expecting some visceral reaction from us when we've seen Breonna Taylor. We've seen George Floyd. I sent some dude sent me a picture of that girl and said, "What do you think about this, T?" I sent him a picture about George Floyd and I said, "What do you think about that?" He said to me, "Oh, you're talking about some criminal who was this and this and this and this and that." Come on. Let's fix our mentalities first before you guys even want to talk about anything like that.
Yeah. Tarris, you said a lot of good stuff there. Here's the problem that we have, and I say this a lot on this podcast. I write about this a lot. The problem that we have is we're not consistent, and that's one of the things that I try to be. Not always, but we have to stand 10 toes down on what's right and what's wrong, and not have the and but afterwards. You can't say that the woman shouldn't have been punched, but it's just quite simply, the woman shouldn't have been punched. We have to be in agreement that there are some things that are just wrong, regardless of who does it, and sometimes even the why behind it. A lot of things can be true at the same time. I think we can all agree, as Raven said, if you run into a burning house, there's quite possibly the chance that you could get burned. But there's still nothing wrong with saying, man, that shouldn't have happened. That still shouldn't have happened. So I think what sends the message of saying, oh, you're condoning a woman getting hit, is when you do that and but after you say it shouldn't have happened. And here's the example that I'll use, because I've mentioned this to Nathan. There's a good column that's going to be coming out on Cincinnati.com that's written by Christopher Griffin, president of the West End Community Council. As soon as I get off, I'm going to post it online. But Christopher talks about the difference in the national reaction to the neo-Nazis in Lincoln Heights versus this brawl in downtown Cincinnati. Both of them racial incidents, but how they're being reacted to very differently by people at the national, state, and national levels, right? The reaction is so much more over the top with this versus the Nazis being there. And one of the things that always frustrated me, particularly with a lot of whites who would comment on that, they would be like, yeah, maybe the neo-Nazis shouldn't have been there, but they had a First Amendment right? Like that just bugged me. Like, why can't we just condemn? I know they have the First Amendment rights, but why as a community can't we just condemn that and say this is not something that we want to be representative of where we live and leave it at that? In the same way that we can't say, why can't we just say that we don't want Cincinnati to be a city that's representative of where people shout racist slurs, where people jump on someone in mass and beat them, and where women get punched? I think that we should all be able to stand 10 toes down on that and say, we don't want people hollering racist things and slapping and attacking people. We don't want people stomping people in the street, and women shouldn't be punched. Like, there should be no qualifiers or equivocation around those things. And so I think that's where we have to stand on what is right, regardless of who's
How do we combat
right?
the people like Kevin? How do we combat these racist keyboard warriors who get on there and no matter if the evidence is right in front of their face, they're still going to keep sending out these racist tropes? JD Vance was the beginning starter of it when he sent out that tweet or whatever that statement he made before the police even had a chance to investigate, when he sent the message out to his base. This is the narrative that we're going with. And everybody has stuck with the script even a week later that the new evidence is coming out and showing about the Russian immigrant. The new evidence has come out about the black, the woman was not in. All the evidence is coming out. And I'm asking the question, Kevin, how can we go forward? Because there's an investigation going on. And there's so much stuff that's going to be coming out that's going to change the narrative of this complete situation nationally, locally. How can we address people like Kevin, who even when they see the evidence in their face, they're still going to say black people are animals, and black people shouldn't put their hands on women no matter what?
Well, first of all, if anybody says that black people are animals, right, that's a racist statement. Plain and simple, whether they're black, white, or what have you. That is an absolute racist statement that's not based in any kind of fact, because we all know black people who are not animals. We all know people of any color who are not animals. I think to call all black people animals because of what you perceive to be inappropriate actions and behavior of a handful is the epitome of a racist, bigoted statement. So anybody who's out there trying to put a label on all black people because of what a handful of people did, that would be my first challenge, is you are well within your right to call them a racist and bigot, because that is a racist and bigoted statement, the essence of which is when you're trying to paint an entire group of people under the label of the actions of a few, right? Everything that black people do, I ain't gonna agree with, or as I said this on the last podcast, or even try to associate or attach myself to, because black people are not a monolith. Just as white people don't do that. They don't take on the actions of what a handful of white people do. You don't say every white people are school shooters, right? Because in fact, most of the school shooters happen to be white, right? We don't say that, and white folks don't accept that or take that on themselves. And I think as black people, we have to push back vigorously against that. And Tarris, all you can do is speak truth. Continue to speak truth vehemently. There are just some people who are sick who are not going to accept facts no matter what. We live in a post-fact society. Quite frankly, thanks in part to the guy we got in the White House who don't care a thing about truth or facts, and has convinced people that news is fake, and all of this other kind of stuff. These are the ages and times that we live in. And the only thing that you can do is continue to battle against those people with truth, stand on truth, and stand on values, and not condone or accept things that are unacceptable, even if they're done by people who look.
And the other thing you got to understand is that everybody has a different motivation. And I feel sincerely that the further you get away from Cincinnati, the further their motivation is actually virtuous. So I think that local leadership is serious about dealing with crime and dealing with this situation and trying to make Cincinnati better and not blow it up. But you got a lot of people that, and this is just my observation, who are either connected to the Republican Party or have aspirations to be somebody in the Republican Party, and they pick up on the vibe. And the vibe is it's a blue city. So it's attack, attack, attack it. And I don't know if they necessarily care about the ramifications, the residual effect, because they're going along with the party. if you're of a certain party, you have to look at it this way if you want to be in that party or if you want to ascend in that party. And they know what it is, but this is the game of politics. They're going to politicize this because you got a Democrat city, Democrat majority, Democrat mayor in a red state, and it's just attack. It's the game for them. And I'm not really sure if all these people really have the best interest of Holly, like Bernie Marino. Bernie Marino is talking about how he's going to give city of Cincinnati 30 days, or else he's going to try to get federal funding to be taken away. What senator tries to take funding away from their state? So I thought senators were trying to bring home the pork and bring home the bacon. So this is the world we live in. It's red versus blue, blue versus red. Everybody's picking sides. They don't care about the facts. If there was a video that came out that showed that Holly, and I'm not saying anything negative about her, that showed that she was being violent, it would be completely ignored by Fox News because it doesn't fit the narrative. They're not going to talk about it. Their narrative is these Democrats and their bad leadership, they're soft on crime. Democrat judges are soft on crime. And that's the reason why. And it feels like it's all politically motivated and not really about the best interests of Cincinnati.
Can I take it a step? I want to take it one more step further real quick, and I'll be quiet. Look at the monetary value Holly's going to get as well if she just keeps her mouth shut. If she comes out stands on truth and says, you know what, I was there. I shouldn't have been doing all that. I was overserved. I was drunk. I should be worried about, healing this community. So let's all come together and let's kumbaya. But she won't, because she's got potential. Just shut up so we can push our narrative for the next 30 days, and we'll give you, let's say $10,000. Let's say $20,000. Let's say a book deal. Let's say this, because you're laid out your picture. Elon Musk tweeted your picture. That's what do you call it? The money shot. She got the money shot. So how if she is quiet and then says, I was drunk, I didn't know, and then they take her on The View. They take her and they put her on this tour like they did, kind of like, and I'm not saying it because I like this girl. The girl who the girl who was a swimmer, who the
transgender. Yeah, I know you're talking about. Yeah,
the white girl from Kentucky. They took her on this tour, and Brittany, I can't think of her name, but she was speaking at all these places. That's what I'm saying.
She's going to become a hero of the Party.
Holly took one for the team, and I'm saying she's a key point. So Holly, if you see this, tell your truths. I want to hear your truths. Were you really feeling that?
Tarris, you raise up an interesting thing, which made me just think about something. And again, this just always makes me wonder or regard the way that Black people respond to situations and the way that white folks respond to situations. You're absolutely right. She's not going to say anything. And it's not just because of the money. I think the money would come regardless of whether she said something, if she's going to go that route. But you're right. The real money is in maintaining the animus, the racial division. But she could have a Rodney King moment, right? She could come out and say, like Rodney King did, with very simply, hey, can't we all just get along, right? And that's what I was going to say about the amazingness sometimes of us, or some people might even say the naivete or stupidity. Here's Rodney King, a man who just got the hell beat out of him by Los Angeles police, beat up every bit as bad as this woman was. And he goes on TV.
Yeah, beat up worse.
He goes on TV to calm a nation. And in fact, is asked to calm a nation.
Let's go.
Is asked to keep Black people civil and to try to keep them from rioting or whatever. This is what we're asked to do. Think about it. In every situation where Black folks are wrong, either that person or representatives from our community are expected to come out and call for peace and calm. And oftentimes we do. Where is that on this end? Where are the white representatives on the side of the quote unquote victims? Where is the call for them to come out and call for peace and for unity and to tone down the temperature? Where is that at? They're not asked to do that in the same way that we're asked to do that. And nor is there even the willingness to do it, because the money is in the animus right now. The politics is in the animus right now. If Holly came out today on the news and was just like, do exactly like what Tarris said, you know what? It was a mistake. We shouldn't have even been in that position. I took a blow. I want to see the people, pay for that, but we need to come together as a community, right? That could have a significant impact. It could, but it ain't gonna happen.
Well, I would like to initiate that then to anybody who would want to start healing whenever you want to. I'd like to be a part of that, white, black, whatever, but it's got to be built on truth. Not no what about isms, not about it would be white people that would understand black people's plights and listen. Why do we always get to this? Whenever these racial things come up, it always like white people stir things up, then they find out that they're wrong, and then they come back and, well, most of the Democrats, they just go away and they're just like, in the back. And somebody asked, am I a Republican? Yes, I am a Republican, but I will call Republicans out when they're wrong. And in this situation, J.D. Vance, you were dead wrong for this. Corey Bowman, for you trying to use black people as a pawn to get elected. Come on, man. I was on this podcast caping for you for the past 3 months. I have been. I've been caping for Corey Bowman for the past 3 months, talking about, hey, Corey, all you got to do is just, go after this Democrat, go after this demographic. But you had a chance, Corey Bowman, a chance to heal and to gain black votes who are on the fence. Maybe you're like, oh, yeah, man, some of that stuff that Tarris, the black conservatives are saying, yeah, I'm going to make a little sense of it. Yeah, we are stuck we haven't moved anywhere since 1965. Oh, Lyndon B. Johnson did say that he's going to pass the N-word bill. And then you get a situation to do something constructive, and then you do everything like I say y'all going to do. You never do it right. You drop the ball. White America, 50, 40, 50, 60 years old, you drop the ball every time you have a chance to do something right. And it's frustrating to me as a black conservative Republican. It's frustrating for me to keep going out here and tell these truths about how I honestly feel about the Democratic Party, and then you have a chance to do something right, and then you don't. That's frustrating. Like I said at the beginning of this program, Nathan asked me what I'm going to do why I'm so frustrated. I was in prayer, and God said, use your skill set to make sure that this racist act, it might not affect anything with J.D. Vance and Andy Beshear race in 2028, but it damn sure, Corey Bowman, if I can do anything, if my skill set's to help Aftab Parabol win, he's not going to need the help. But I'm willing to extend my skill sets to them just to make sure that this kind of crap doesn't fly in our area ever again. Let's make Corey Bowman a laughing stock for trying to take this approach.
Hey, check this is how serious it is. Check this. This is being reported by the Cincinnati Enquirer. A Dayton man arrested after making threats to kill tens of thousands in Cincinnati. This is how serious it is. This is how serious it is. So, people hear that stuff. They hear this right-wing rhetoric. They're like, oh my God, they're going after white people and they really believe it. They really believe it. Just like
they've been perpetuating this race war thing for the last few years now. Like it's all slowly culminating into this race war that conservative and far right white America wants to see happen because they want to be justified in their outright slaughtering of black and brown bodies. That's just where we are. And to kind of go back to a point that Kevin was making, once all of this stuff comes out and the investigation is concluded, and let's just say that it is officially concluded and everything via charges and all of that stuff that this white man actually did incite some violence and he is charged and sentenced accordingly and all that other stuff. Fox News and all of the far right publications that have been touting this as a way to kind of tar and feather the black community and strengthen and embolden all the stereotypes they assign to us. If it just so happens that they are wrong, they'll never mention it again. And if they do mention it or reference it, what they will do is completely negate the outcome of the investigation. What they'll do, because I've seen them do it a million times. You remember that time when all those black people attacked such and such in Cincinnati? This is like they'll use it in a way as a dishonest comparison to a future event. They're never gonna acknowledge the outcome of the investigation. And if they are, just so happen if somebody if a liberal publication invites a Republican representative to come and discuss something that happens in the future, if they reference this and then in the middle of them, being told, well, actually the result of that investigation was that such and such happened, what they'll say is, well, can you really trust the investigators, or can you really trust the results of that investigation in such a liberal city? Like they'll continue to perpetuate the lie because they don't care about the truth. The lie will always be more important than the truth if it supports white supremacy.
Yeah, here's where I think, Raven, everything that you said is accurate, and I think one of the things that we have to recognize in this situation is you have really bad actors, and then you have some people who are misinformed, right? Who are kind of going along with it. The bad actors have no interest in the truth. I can tell you right now, people in these white supremacist groups who are trying to recruit and get people ginned up, they don't care about the facts. All they need is that video of black people stomping a white man and punching a white woman. That's all they need. That's all they need to recruit. That's all they need to perpetrate their narrative that there's a race war coming and you better be prepared because, to use Tarris's terms, look at these animals attacking us. White people are not safe on the streets of Cincinnati. I don't know where this date man is getting his information. He could be a part of one of those groups or getting that stuff from there. We don't know enough about his background. In fact, I haven't even read the story, short of what Nathan just put up there. But you got to understand that in the dark recesses and corners, this is what those really bad actors are doing. They don't care about the facts. They don't care about what's going to come out the truth. They've got their recruiting tool and everything that they need to stir up racial animus and hate. And they're going to use that. The other group of people, which you might be able to affect to some degree, are the misinformed as things come out. But you got to hope those people are not too much wrapped up into the politics, because our politics of the day has said you can't believe the other side. I mean, think about it. What Democrat is going to accept anything that comes out of Trump's Justice Department or from any official that Trump would release information on? The documents come out. You ain't going to believe that. You're not going to believe that. You're not. If you're a Democrat, he's lying. They're making this stuff up. And there is a possibility, even a shred of possibility, that they could be releasing truth. But because our politics is so divided and he has a history of not being truthful, that even if they did happen to release the truth, people on the other side are not going to accept it. And the same thing is true for Republicans, for things that liberals are going to say for the same reason. So we've created an environment where it's almost impossible to know where the truth is if you are dug in on a political side. You're not going to accept facts that come from something that runs counter to your political narrative. That's just where we are. And those of us who are kind of in the middle, who are kind of willing to be objective and soak in data and information, bro, we are in the minority. I mean, you think you're in the majority, but you're not. The minority of people who are willing to accept facts and dig deep and not take what the politician says at face value and will listen to bad information and swallow it whole, brother, those people are in the minority these days.
Hey, check that. This is a city manager.
Staff, which is more than 6,000 dedicated public servants, are working around the clock to deliver services, protect our communities, and build our future. I stand here today on behalf of all of them. There is no excuse for these folks who come to work for the benefit of everyone to receive abusive, hateful, harassing, and bigoted language, which unfortunately has been happening all week long. It needs to stop. As always, I'm proud to stand here with the police chief, Teresa,
They're not stopping.
and commend the entire department on the work they do. For this incident,
I'm not going to hold you guys. That was on Cincinnati.com. People can check it out for themselves. I was about to end the show, so I really appreciate everybody's time. It's on Cincinnati.com. You can watch the rest of it, but
WCPO is also live right now too.
okay, WCPO.
Mhm.
But again, thank you, everybody. I really appreciate your time. Kevin, Raven, Tarris, Mack, all the folks. We didn't get any listeners on. We had some people backstage, but I know I had you on for a while. So thank you so much. Have a great Friday. And we're planning to be back on Tuesday at 1 p.m. for another episode of the Hot Mic Podcast. And again, have a great weekend.
See you later, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
See ya.